Welcome back, everybody. It wasn't that long ago when we had a secure border, a low number of terrorists coming across the border, not many people being dying because we had a border strategy that worked. And that our next guest was at the forefront of helping President Trump put that strategy into place. He's the former Homeland Security Secretary, Chad Wolf, and he joins us right now. Mr. Secretary, great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I want to talk a little bit about numbers because numbers tell the real story here. 2.1 million illegal crossings already this year. I believe 85 terrorists or people with suspected terrorist ties have come across. 12 in August alone, an all-time record. More than 800 people dying as they were trying to cross the border, 3 times what it was in the Trump administration. We're in a crisis, but the White House is saying we're doing a great job. Where are the American people on this?
Yeah, it's really remarkable what the White House and the administration continue to double down, not only on a failed strategy at that border, but also on failed messaging. They continue to say that the border is closed and it's secure and everything's under control, nothing to see here. But the numbers that you outlined, as well as a whole host of other numbers, tell a far different story. And it's really a story that's unfolding, and it's a crisis. It's not only a humanitarian crisis, we have a security crisis going on down there, and there's not a lot of not a lot of attention being focused on it. But as you said, there are more and more migrants dying in that desert and on that river than ever before because of the policies of this administration. So I think it's good that we're having a national debate, right, about it. You have big city mayors and you have the left now talking about this issue, but they're only really talking about it because it's shown up on their doorstep, whether that's been in New York City and DC and Chicago or Martha's Vineyard. Absent, action being taken by the governor of Texas or Florida, the left continues not to talk about this. They continue to be silent on it. Where is the president? Where are the vice president? They have a crisis. They should be on national television, prime time, outlining the crisis and outlining the steps that this administration is taking. Where is the strategy? If they have one, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And meanwhile, the very people they say they're trying to give an opportunity to are being victimized all the way on the journey here. They're put into the hands of cartels. Women are repeatedly raped. People make risky ventures across the river. They end up drowning, I think 8 in one day very recently. Literally, they're imposing on the very people they say they're trying to help the most inhumane way of coming into the country. Do you think everyday Americans are beginning to grasp that this actually has a consequence, not just for all of us here, but for the very people that the Democrats say they're trying to support?
Well, I think the American people understand that what occurs at that border does not stay at the border. So I think that first and foremost, they're impacted most probably by the fentanyl and opioid crisis that's hitting every community across this country. Second, I think they realize the number of individuals coming across that border is unsustainable for the United States. It's unsustainable for those border communities. I don't know if the population has a good understanding of the humanitarian crisis that's going on down there, because if you don't live in those communities or you don't talk to law enforcement down there, I think it's hard to grasp what's going on. Since the federal government's not enforcing border security and the laws along that border, the slack that has to be taken up is by that local law enforcement. So I talked to several sheriffs yesterday saying that their resources are stretched thin. Not only are they arresting more individuals, illegal aliens, because of crimes that are being committed, but they are also picking up and discovering more and more, unfortunately, individuals that have perished in the desert, particularly in Arizona and other places, because of the policies of this administration. Whether that is getting out to the American people sort of in a comprehensive way, I think we continue to try to talk about it. But when you have large portions of the media refusing to really focus on that, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, it's a complete blackout on most days. It's just extraordinary. In fact, there was more concern about the 50 illegal aliens that were dropped at the door at Martha's Vineyard than the 50 who died in the back of a truck because of these incredible conditions that they're doing. Fentanyl, you mentioned it a little bit, the number of pills being seized and the lethality of them going up by record amounts. It affects every community in America. Is there anything that the Border Patrol has been allowed to do to try to stop this, or both of their hands really tied behind their back right now?
Well, what I'll tell you is trying to obviously not only detect and then apprehend illegal narcotics coming into the United States, even before the fentanyl crisis was a challenge. We need more technology along that border, particularly at our legal ports of entry, what we call non-intrusive technology, to make sure that we're scanning vehicles and we're scanning individuals coming across that border. But look, the humanitarian crisis and the border crisis and the human trafficking that we see is tied to the fentanyl crisis. It's tied in the sense that the Mexican cartels are making millions of dollars a day off of smuggling individuals across that border, and therefore they're able to invest that money back into their enterprise to peddle more and more of this fentanyl across the border. So you've got to attack one, and if you attack one, which is the border crisis and the human trafficking, then inevitably you will have an impact of what's going on the illegal narcotics side. But you're absolutely correct. We need to get serious about this Mexican cartels. They are killing Americans every single day. And why I love, we can talk about Ukraine and we can talk about places overseas, but let's start focusing on what's killing Americans day in and day out. And that's not only the illegal narcotics coming across, but it's also the border security crisis that we see today.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There was a pretty dramatic moment just a few days ago. The Texas governor signing an executive order declaring that the cartels moving that fentanyl, moving all of those illegal humans into our country are terrorist organizations. Asked President Biden to do the same. The pressure on the Biden administration is growing. Do you think if a Republican Congress is put in place that we might actually see a designation like that?
Well, you certainly could. I mean, we were certainly talking about it at the end of the Trump administration. I think there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It's not just naming them a foreign terrorist organization, but what does that mean? What does that allow you to do? And then what are the drawbacks from that as well? So there's a couple of things to really look at, but I think that this needs to have a serious evaluation, whether the National Security Council and others inside the Biden administration are taking a hard look at this and really coming up with a credible analysis of what needs to occur here needs to be done. I'm hopeful that they're going to do that, because sitting back and just saying, well, the cartels have always operated there and there's nothing that we can do. They're inside Mexico. They're not in the United States. It's no longer acceptable. The status quo that we've had for the past several decades is no longer acceptable. We need to take action. I think we need to take specific action against the cartels, whether designating them as an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization, that may be part of it, or we may be able to take some separate action outside of that as well.
Yeah, people are crying for just that action. They remember the days that long ago when you were in charge and these things weren't as big an issue. Mr. Secretary, great honor to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you.
You as well. All right, folks, we're gonna take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.